All right, welcome back, my friends, to All Cars. I'm John, and today is another Motorweek Retro Review reaction, and this time it's the 1986 Suzuki Samurai. Now, I've got to give you some background on this. The first is I want these reaction videos to feel like you and me on a Thursday morning sitting around with a cup of coffee, just kind of reminiscing about old cars. And in the mid-'80s, well, I was a teenager, and I was a Jeep fan. As a matter of fact, when I graduated from high school, my first vehicle was an old CJ5 that had been semi-customized by multiple people before me. It was horrifically unreliable. But the third or fourth vehicle that I purchased with my own money was a Jeep Wrangler. Fantastically reliable. Then I ended up with a Cherokee. Fantastically reliable. So I'm a Jeep guy. And when the Samurai came out, I piled on it like everybody else. I laughed at it. It was too small, it was too light, too noisy, not enough power. It was a joke, right? It was a toy. And then Consumer Reports came out and figured out how to make it flip. And admittedly, as I grew up, I came to appreciate the Samurai a lot more. It's not unsafe. You have to drive it carefully, but it's not unsafe, and it is good for what it is. It is a crude vehicle without a lot of power and without a lot of noise deadening. But the fact is the new one is one of my most desired vehicles to come back to America, the Jimny. So it'll be really fun to look at the Samurai at a contemporary review and kind of see what we think of it.
You know, every now and again, a car company introduces a vehicle to only a small part of the country, sort of as a test. We first drove the little Suzuki 4x4 last year on a trip to California, where there seems to be a market for just about everything. Well, then the Samurai showed up here in Florida, and now the little buggers are taking over the East Coast, and they're headed for Middle America next. So we thought it was about time for a thorough investigation of this miniature 4x4 invader. The first thing we discovered is that the Samurai is not a new vehicle. Earlier versions of the car have been sold throughout the world for nearly 16 years. So you might have seen the Samurai at vacation spots in Hawaii and in the Caribbean. But most Americans were only introduced to it last year. Suzuki says the Samurai didn't have quite enough power or flash for mainland America until now. The Samurai is a purposeful-looking little vehicle. Our staff descriptions range from cute all the way to handsome. The body is well finished with excellent fit all round. The paint job with its sporty trim also gets high marks.
I gotta say, Suzuki and their cars, their other stuff they came along with, and certainly including like the Geo Tracker, Suzuki knew how to build stuff. They didn't build it large, they didn't build it quiet. It always ended up being more crude than its contemporaries, and certainly they did not have the engine selection to compete with the Mitsubishis and the Nissans and the Toyotas. But they always built a pretty good car. In spite of Suzuki's foibles and faults, I've always kind of had a good impression of them if you want something that's going to last forever. You may not want to drive it forever, but I've always had a good opinion of its reliability.
Tested both an 86 hardtop and 87 open-top Samurai. This year's model gets larger mirrors, but they still could be even larger. The new locking gas cap is large and easy to grip, even if you've got 10 thumbs. The hardtop Samurai can go convertible for summer, but it will take some effort. Our open-top test model came equipped with a thin canvas top that was literally a snap to put up and down, using more Velcro than metal fasteners. It comes in an amazing variety of colors. The Samurai is powered by a 1.3-liter four-cylinder engine fed by a simple two-barrel carburetor. This lightweight aluminum block unit puts out 64 horsepower and 74 pound-feet of torque.
1.3 liters, 60 some odd horsepower with a carburetor in 86. This is not exactly cutting edge. And remember what they said, right? They had the Suzuki before, but it wasn't powerful enough for the mainstream market. So this is the what they thought was appropriate. The fact is, I'm interested to see the test results because there's not much to the vehicle, but that's a teeny tiny little engine, and yeah, nobody in America is really excited about that. But I'm interested to see how it actually performed. And what the heck is this giant white pipe across the front of the engine?
The small engine makes for a very roomy engine compartment. Everything is in easy reach, and normal maintenance takes almost no time at all. This will make a lot of shade tree mechanics very happy. The engine bolts to a 5-speed manual transmission, the only transmission available. Suzuki has no plans for an automatic. On paper, the Samurai has a good power-to-weight ratio. Unfortunately, that doesn't translate into acceleration. Our Samurais went from 0 to 60 in a very slow 17.2 seconds and loitered through the quarter mile in 21.2 seconds at 62 miles per hour.
That is so slow. It loitered through the quarter mile. That's absolutely hilarious that they put it that way. You know, good power to weight ratio, that's fantastic, but that is really, really slow. And I think that's part of the problem is when you have Suzuki, which is a good manufacturer, a worldwide and successful worldwide manufacturer, if they have an engine that works everywhere else, they're not going to come out and design a 1.8 or a 2-liter engine just for the American market. I think that's part of why Suzuki ultimately failed here in the U.S. But regardless, that's so slow. That's hilarious.
That's slower than most diesel-powered cars. And on the highway, it means you have to pay constant attention to the throttle to keep a steady speed. In our handling test, the Samurai acts about like any other 4x4. The nose swings naturally into a turn, but the high center of gravity makes for a lot of body roll. Thankfully, the tame power plant makes it hard to push the Samurai to a dangerous point, and it never feels top-heavy to an extreme.
Good for them for mentioning it that way. I like how they phrase it, that basically the car doesn't have enough power to get you going fast enough where you're going to be in a dangerous situation. I guess that the lack of horsepower is a safety feature in this case, but good for them for saying it never feels top heavy.
The steering is non-power, slow and heavy, despite the Samurai's light weight. Front disc rear drum brakes pulled our Samurai down fairly well, but not without pulling to the left each time. For the record, distances averaged 120 feet in 6 stops from 55. Adequate and comparable to most small sedans.
Yeah, not great. I mean, we've seen a lot of these where they do it in, say, 115 feet. So this is not unusual. The pulling to the left, you know, I'm glad for ABS for getting rid of cars that pull to the left, pull to the right, or lock up the rear brakes and want to slide around. So, not bad, not bad.
The interior is very well finished, but with a Spartan, purposeful flavor. 87s do have new seats and more legroom than before. Accessibility is excellent, but the seats are hard and lack lumbar support. The dash is simple and well laid out. The minimal instrumentation is large and generally easy to read, but the flat glass faces are too reflective with the top down. The shifter is a bit notchy, but has short throws, and the 4-wheel drive control lever is easy to reach. But the Samurai's hood release is in the glove box. This could be a problem if you like to carry a lot of maps. There is
that pretty much summarizes my thoughts on Suzuki. Not a ton of power, good build quality. Everything kind of works, it's just not class leading. You know, the transmission being notchy, the glare from the gauges, and the overall dashboard, it's cheap black plastic. It's cheap, but everything seems to fall largely right there at hand and actually work. Not class leading, not beautiful, amazing, upscale, but this vehicle, what you want is functional, easy to clean, and something that the ergonomics allow you to not have to think about it. That it just works. And I think the Suzuki kind of does that.
There's also a new vanity mirror so you can look good even on the roughest trails. The rear seat offers sufficient legroom for the average person, but watch out for that roll bar when you get in. For luggage space, simply fold the rear seat out of the way. This gives plenty of room for even big loads. But the Samurai is a four-wheel drive vehicle, and that means off-road. Over the worst terrain, the ride is stiff and bouncy. Gas shocks would help a lot. But the Samurai's short 35-foot turning circle makes for easy maneuvering even in tight places. To change between two- and four-wheel drive, you have to stop and engage the manual locking hubs.
All right, who here is old enough to remember manual locking hubs on a 4x4? A bunch of all these spoiled rich kids these days got the ability to just pull a lever and everything engages. In my day, you got out in the snow, in the rain, in the sand, and turned a knob on each side. Grumpy 2022.
The transfer case offers both a high and low gear range. If you want to customize your Samurai, the dealer has what's called a personalization center. It offers over 60 optional accessories, most of which bolt right on. But the best feature of this fun-filled little vehicle is its price. You can drive one away for only $6,895. This, plus fuel consumption estimates of 28 city and 29 highway, make the Samurai the most economical off-road 4x4 available anywhere.
I love it. I love it. I mean, first off, the price is fantastic. I mean, we're not in 1986 now. I get it. But, man, the price is fantastic. 28 and 29 for your mileage, that's really, really good. They get there because they don't have any power. but that's really good. And I think it's adorable. I think it's fantastic. I mean, there's an argument to be made. I won't be the person to make it, but there's an argument to be made that this is a little tiny G-Wagon. That square, boxy look. I love the style. I can't believe I didn't like it more in 1986, but I love the style right now. And those seats, I mean, the current Jimny is stylish, right? And it's cool to look back and see in 1986, they were still doing that. They had these interesting seats. They were still trying to be stylish.
So we've come to like this little 4x4. The low price makes it instantly appealing. The sporty looks and roomy interior are also big pluses. Access to the compact engine couldn't be better. And the large selection of bolt-on accessories allows owners to customize their Samurais to their own taste. Unfortunately, the ride is pretty rough, and there is a lot of wind noise with both hard and soft tops. Worst of all, the Samurai is very slow off the mark. But it might be just the ticket for those who want minimal four-wheel drive complexity and the ability to get where you need to go regardless of the roads or weather. Plus, it's a combination of fun and low price that simply can't be beat. So if the Suzuki Samurai hasn't already invaded the roads where you live, chances are it will soon.
What a great review. And again, if Suzuki or somebody with Suzuki ever sees this, bring the new Jimny to America. I truly believe you'll have a hit on your hands. And while they can talk about the off-road cred of this vehicle, because sure, there's something to be said for the raw power of a Hummer H1, narrow, short, four-wheel drive, lightweight, that tends to lead to success off-road. There's paths you can't go down in bigger vehicles, and the Suzuki, I believe, my summary of it is that when it came here to America, it became successful because of, well, yuppies and their children. You know, you think about the kids from Bel Air buying a Jimny and piling all their friends in it, not being an off-roader, but being a fun status symbol. It only became appreciated for its off-road ability and the ease to work on it, I think, afterwards. At least expanded that view. And now you wouldn't catch a teenager, who wants to look cool in a 86 Samurai ever, but you could find one that had been modified and had those off-road accessories bolted onto it to make it better. I really respect this vehicle. I really do. I mean, I'd love it to have more power, but I respect it, and I would desperately love a new Jimny to come here. I just think they're fantastic in their simplicity. You know, the last thing I'll say is, as far as I can remember, I've never driven one of these. I have driven a Geo Tracker, okay, which is also a Suzuki product and kind of the replacement for the Samurai after the kerfluffle over the fact that it apparently just flipped over all the time, which is not true. And I remember the Geo Tracker for not having a lot of power and for being cheap. It kind of felt like an old MG. It didn't have a lot of power, but it felt peppy and it felt lively. I'd like to drive an old Samurai to see if it kind of has that same vibe. Let me know what you think below, guys. I appreciate you being here.